You did not lose yourself all at once. It happened slowly. One yes that should have been a no. One person you carried who never carried you back. One dream you put off because something else needed you first. And one day you looked up and could not remember the last time you came first in your own life. That is not weakness. That is what happens when a good person keeps giving without ever giving back to themselves. The world called you reliable, selfless, a good friend, a good partner. So you kept going, kept giving, kept showing up for everyone, but nobody told you what that costs. It costs your energy first, then your time, then your sense of what you actually want, and eventually it costs you yourself. Nobody is coming to protect your peace. Nobody is going to say this person has given enough, let them rest. That is your job. It has always been your job. And if nobody has ever said this to you clearly, let me say it now. You are allowed to come first in your own life. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your energy, your time, your peace without apologizing for it. You are allowed to be important to yourself. That is not selfish. That is basic. That is the foundation of a life that actually works. Today we are going to talk about how to start doing it. 5 rules. 1 decision. Stop fighting for everyone and start fighting for yourself. This is not about becoming cold. It is not about cutting people off or deciding the world is against you. It is about understanding one simple thing. You cannot keep giving from nothing. You cannot keep running on empty and calling it dedication. At some point the well runs dry, and when it does, you have nothing left for anyone, including yourself. Today, we are going to change that. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Let us begin. Say this in the comments right now and mean it. I fight for myself first. Rule 1. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You have been told your whole life that giving is good, that putting others first is noble, and there is truth in that. But giving has a limit. When you keep giving past that limit, it stops being generosity. It becomes depletion. When you give from a full place, your giving feels warm, real. The people who receive it can feel the difference. There is no resentment attached to it, no hidden cost, just genuine care. But when you give from an empty place, when you are already running low and you push through anyway, that giving costs you in ways you do not feel immediately. You feel it later, in the exhaustion that sleep does not fix, in the irritability that creeps in when you have been stretched too long, in the slow bitterness toward people who never asked you to give that much, but who you gave to anyway. That bitterness is important information. It is telling you something was off balance. Not that the people were bad, not that your giving was wrong, that the balance was wrong, that you were giving more than you were replenishing. And that imbalance, if it continues, turns good people into resentful ones. You do not want to arrive there. You do not want to become someone who has given so much for so long that every act of generosity feels like a tax instead of a choice. Protect yourself from that now, before you get there. Or if you are already there, start coming back now. 1 refill at a time. Jim Rohn said, "Take care of your body. It is the only place you have to live." That applies to more than your body. It applies to your energy, your time, your inner world. These are the only ones you have. They are worth protecting. Think of a tree. It gives shade, fruit, and shelter. It can do all of that because its roots go deep. It takes from the earth before it gives to everything around it. Nobody looks at a tree and says those roots are selfish. The roots are the reason the tree can give at all. Without them, there is nothing to give. The tree dries up, falls in the first wind, leaves nothing behind. You are no different. The rest, the quiet, the time you spend coming back to yourself, those are your roots. They are not luxuries. They are the reason you can keep showing up. They are what makes your giving sustainable instead of destructive. Your rest is your root, your quiet time, the moments you spend doing things that bring you back to yourself. Without those roots, you are a tree slowly drying out while still trying to give shade. Most people treat rest like it is something they earn, like they have to justify it, like taking a morning for themselves requires a special reason. It does not. The reason is that you are a person, with needs, with limits, with a well that runs dry if nothing ever goes back into it. You do not need to explain that to anyone. You do not need permission for it. You just need to start treating yourself like someone whose needs are as legitimate as everyone else's. Because they are. A tree with no roots falls in the first storm. The storms in life come in many forms. A sudden loss, a relationship that breaks, a job that ends, a period where everything that felt stable stops feeling stable. When those moments arrive, the question is always the same. Have you built enough inside yourself to handle what is happening outside? The person who has been taking care of themselves, who has roots, handles storms differently, not without pain, not without difficulty, but with a steadiness that comes from having something solid inside, from knowing who they are, from having a foundation that was not built on other people's approval or other people's needs. Build that foundation now. In the quiet mornings before the storms come, when you start protecting yourself, people who are used to your yes will push back. Some will call it selfish. Some will go quiet. Some will make you feel guilty for having needs. Do not let that stop you. That pushback is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that something is changing. Change is uncomfortable before it becomes normal. Hold the line. The people who genuinely care about you will adjust. They will see the fuller version of you that shows up when you are not running on empty. And they will understand, even if they never say it out loud, that this version was always the one worth being around. You have been giving the leftovers of yourself for too long. The tired version, the stretched version, the version that agrees just to avoid conflict. Start giving from a full place. That means filling yourself first, not last. First, rest before you are forced to. Say no before you are burned out. Take care of yourself before everything falls apart. That is not selfishness. That is the foundation everything else stands on. When you give from a full place, you do not keep score. You do not feel resentful. You do not quietly wish you had kept it. You give freely because you actually have something to give. Build that fullness. Protect it every single day. And here is the thing most people miss. Taking care of yourself is not a reward you earn after you have done enough for others. It is not something you get to do once the list is finished. The list never finishes. If you wait for the right time to rest, to slow down, to fill yourself back up, that time will not come on its own. You have to decide it is time, regardless of what is still on the list. That decision is not easy the first few times. It will feel wrong, like you are abandoning something, like you are letting people down. You are not. You are making a long-term investment in the quality of everything you give, and that investment pays back every person who matters to you, because they get the real version of you, not the depleted one. So this morning, before you do anything else, ask yourself one question. What does my cup need today? And then actually do that thing. Not later, now. If you are ready to protect the source, write this below and commit to it. I refill before I pour. Rule 2. Stop earning your place in rooms that would not miss you. There are rooms in your life you work very hard to stay in. You show up early. You give more than your share. You adjust your opinions, your energy, your needs to fit what the room wants. You make yourself easy, agreeable, useful, and when you leave, the room continues without missing a beat. That is worth paying attention to, because if you left and nobody noticed, what were you actually giving it? not belonging, not connection. You were giving it performance. You were spending real energy on a space that treated that energy like it was expected, not valued. Expected and valued are not the same thing. Expected means they assumed you would give it. Valued means they would feel the loss if you did not. Know the difference, and stop spending your best energy in places where you are merely expected. Coco Chanel said, "The most courageous act is still to think for yourself, aloud." The room that does not miss you is not your home. The energy you spend trying to earn a permanent place in it is energy stolen from the people and spaces that would feel your absence deeply. Ask yourself this: if you imagined stepping away from a particular group, a job, a friendship, what is your first feeling, relief or loss? If relief comes first, that is your answer. Part of you already knows this room costs more than it gives. Relief is not a bad feeling, it is an honest one. And honesty about where you actually belong is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Think about how much energy goes into performing for a room that does not see you. It is not the healthy exhaustion of meaningful work. It is the hollow kind. The kind that comes from trying to be enough for a space that already decided what it thinks of you. You leave those rooms tired in a way sleep does not fix. Because it is not physical tiredness. It is the tiredness of spending hours being someone you are not. The question is not, how do I earn this room's approval? The question is, why do I still want it? Some rooms ask you to shrink, and for a while you do it, because the room feels important, because the people in it seem to matter, because leaving feels like failing. But staying in a room that requires your silence is also a kind of failing, a slower one, a more complete one. Every time you hold back what you think, every time you go along with something that does not sit right, every time you edit yourself to stay comfortable in that space, you get a little smaller, a little less certain of your own voice. Stop before you disappear completely. The rooms worth staying in want you full. They welcome your real opinion. They do not need you to be less so, they can feel like more. Find those rooms, build them if you have to, and stop spending your best energy trying to earn a seat at a table that was never really set for you. The right people recognize your presence immediately. You should not have to fight for that. And when you find people who see you clearly, who actually want your real opinion, who make space for who you actually are, protect those relationships, invest in them, show up for them fully. Because genuine connection is rare. Most people spend their whole life performing for spaces that never fully receive them, while neglecting the few relationships that actually could. Do not make that mistake. The rooms that deserve you are out there. Some of them you are already in. Recognize them, value them, give them the energy you have been wasting trying to earn approval in the wrong places. And when you find those spaces, the ones where you can just exist without performing, you will notice how different it feels. You leave those rooms with energy. You feel more like yourself, not less. That is what belonging actually feels like. Do not settle for anything less. This morning, think about the rooms in your life, the groups, the relationships, the spaces you show up to regularly. Which ones add something to you? Which ones consistently drain you? You do not have to make any dramatic moves today, but be honest with yourself. Start directing your energy toward the spaces that deserve it and quietly away from the ones that do not. That is not cruelty, that is wisdom. Wisdom about where your energy belongs is one of the most powerful things you can practice. And once you start practicing it, you will notice your whole life begins to feel different, less scattered, more intentional, like you are spending your days among people who actually want you there, not performing for ones who would not notice if you left. That shift is available to you. Starting today. Starting with the honest answer to one question: Which rooms deserve more of me and which deserve less? Is there a room in your life right now that is costing you more than it gives? Drop it in the comments. If you are done shrinking to fit, write this below. I belong where I am valued. Rule 3. Your time is the only thing you cannot get back. Everything else can be rebuilt. Money can be earned again. Reputation can be repaired. Even health in many cases can be restored. But time spent is gone. Every hour you give to something that does not serve you is an hour that does not exist anymore. It cannot be taken back. It is simply gone. Most people know this. Almost nobody acts like it is true. We give our time freely to obligations we did not choose, to conversations that drain us, to commitments we made in weaker moments we now regret. We say yes in 10 seconds and spend 10 hours wondering why we agreed. Benjamin Franklin said, "You may delay, but time will not." Your hours are not unlimited. The ones you have deserve to be treated with the same care you give to anything precious. We were taught to think about productivity, output, what we did for others, not the quiet daily passing of hours that make up a life. Start thinking about it differently. Your time is yours first. Everyone else is asking for it second. How you spend your time is how you spend your life. What you gave a Tuesday afternoon to shapes who you are by Wednesday. A year of giving your best hours to the wrong things leaves you at the end of that year further from who you want to be. Fighting for yourself means fighting for your time first. Because time is the raw material of your life. What you build your days from is what your life is made of. There is no version of a meaningful life that happens without intentional use of your hours. None. Every life worth living was built hour by hour, in small, consistent choices, by someone who decided their time was worth protecting. You are that person, starting today. At the end of each day, just ask, where did my hours go today? If you saw that same pattern for 30 days in a row, would you be happy with the life it built? If the answer is no, one thing needs to change. Not everything. One thing, one boundary. 1 hour taken back and given to something that actually matters to you. 1 hour reclaimed daily becomes 7 hours a week, 30 hours a month, 365 hours a year. That is enough to learn something real, build something real, become someone different. Think about what you could build with that time. A skill you have been putting off. A project you keep saying you will start when things slow down. A practice that would change the quality of your days. A habit that would compound into something meaningful a year from now. That time exists. It is currently going somewhere else. The work is not creating more time. The work is redirecting what you already have. 1 hour. Start there. Protect it like it matters, because it does. The people most at peace with their lives almost never said yes to everything. They said no to enough things to have space for what actually mattered. Saying no to the wrong thing is how you say yes to the right one. Every no is a yes to something else. When you say no to a draining obligation, you are saying yes to an hour of your own work. When you say no to a conversation that costs you your morning, you are saying yes to the quiet you needed. When you say no to one more commitment that was never really yours to carry, you are saying yes to the space that was already full of something more important. Start seeing your no that way, not as a door closing, as a door opening. The more often you say no to the right things, the more available you are for the things that actually matter. Your presence becomes more valuable, your yes becomes more meaningful, and you stop dragging yourself through your days feeling like you gave everything to everyone and kept nothing for yourself. People will always have reasons for needing your time. Urgent reasons. reasons that make your own plans feel small in comparison. Urgency is not the same as importance. Someone else's emergency is not automatically your responsibility to solve. Learn that distinction and protect it. The time you save belongs to your life. Use it like it matters, because it does. This morning is a good time to decide what gets your hours today, not just what ends up with your hours by default. What do you actually choose to give them to? Make that decision now, before the day starts pulling at you, because once the day starts, everyone has a reason for why their need should come first. The person who decided in advance where their time goes is always in a stronger position than the one reacting to whatever arrives. Decide now, protect the decision, and let everything else fit around what matters most to you. That is not selfish time management. That is the way a person who respects their own life organizes their days. If you are ready to take your time back, claim this in the comments. My time is mine to protect. Rule 4. Guilt is not a good reason to stay. Good people fall into this trap more than anyone else. The guilt trap only works on people who care, people who feel things deeply, people who genuinely invest in the well-being of others. It does not work on people who do not care. They say no without a second thought. The trap only catches the ones who actually give a damn. So if guilt is what keeps you stuck, that is proof of how much you care, not proof that your boundary is wrong. You feel it when you say no and someone looks hurt. When you choose yourself and a voice inside says, "Who do you think you are?" Guilt can pull you back into situations you know are wrong, keep you in relationships that ran their course, keep you in roles that stopped fitting a long time ago, and it shows up hardest in the healthiest moments. When you start honoring your own needs, when you stop making yourself small, right there, that is when guilt arrives. Not because something is wrong, because something is changing. Brené Brown said, "You cannot give what you do not have." Guilt is not generosity. Guilt that shows up when you set a healthy limit is almost never real moral guilt. It is social discomfort. The feeling of disappointing someone who is used to you always saying yes. Pay attention to that distinction. Real guilt has a specific quality to it. It points at something concrete, a lie you told, a promise you broke, an actual harm you caused to someone who did not deserve it. Social guilt is vaguer. It is just discomfort, the feeling of doing something unfamiliar, the anxiety of watching someone react to your no when they expected a yes. It does not point at anything you did wrong. It points at the fact that something is different now. Different is not wrong. Different is just unfamiliar. And unfamiliar becomes normal faster than you think if you keep showing up and making the same choice. That discomfort is not a stop sign. It is the sound of change. You move through it by continuing to move. Real guilt, the kind that points at an actual mistake, an actual harm you caused, that is worth listening to. But guilt that is just the friction of a new choice in an old pattern, that is not guidance, that is habit, an old one you have practiced so long it feels like instinct. Habits can change, even deep ones. You can feel guilty and still hold the boundary. Both can exist at the same time. Guilt does not have to win. You can acknowledge the discomfort and still choose yourself. The people who love you will adjust. They may need time, but the ones who are genuinely for you will come around. The ones who do not adjust, who punish you for choosing yourself, that tells you exactly what the relationship was built on. It was built on your compliance. And compliance is not love. This is one of those truths that takes time to fully land. Because you have invested in those relationships. You have given years. You have shown up and sacrificed and adjusted. And the idea that what held it together was your willingness to stay small, that hurts. But it is better to know. It is better to see clearly than to keep investing in a foundation that was never solid. What survives when you stop complying is worth keeping. And what does not survive, you were already holding it up alone. It was not a relationship. It was a performance with an audience of one. Let it go. Not with bitterness. With the quiet clarity of someone who decided they deserve something real. Love that lasts does not require you to stay the same forever. It does not collapse when you start taking care of yourself. It says, I see you changing and I am still here. The relationship that says stay small or I leave was never built on solid ground. You were holding it up alone, and what survives when you stop holding everything up, that is what was real. Next time guilt rises after you choose yourself, ask one question. Is this pointing at something I actually did wrong, or is it just the discomfort of a new choice? Most of the time the answer is discomfort, not wrongdoing. Keep choosing right. The guilt gets quieter, not immediately, but it does, because every time you choose yourself, you add one more piece of evidence that you are worth choosing. And that evidence builds until the old voice cannot compete with it anymore. This morning, if there is a situation in your life where guilt is keeping you stuck, name it. Just to yourself. You do not have to act on it today, but naming it clearly is the first step. Because you cannot move past something you have not looked at honestly. Name it. See it for what it is. And know that choosing yourself in that situation is not wrong. It is long overdue. The strength to do it comes from doing it, not from waiting until it feels comfortable. It never feels fully comfortable at first. You just do it anyway. And it gets easier. And then it becomes who you are. And as it becomes who you are, something else changes. The quality of your relationships, the ones built on genuine respect, start to deepen because you are showing up as someone who has limits, who has needs, who cannot be taken for granted. And that person, that version of you, earns a different kind of respect than the version that was available to everyone all the time. Not less loved, more genuinely loved. Because what people love about you is no longer just your availability, it is you. If you are choosing yourself over guilt today, write this in the comments. I choose myself without guilt. Rule 5. The life you want will not build itself. Nobody is coming to build your life for you. Not the right person, not the perfect opportunity, not the moment when everything finally lines up. That moment is not coming. The life you want does not arrive. It is built, decision by decision, day by day, by you. That is not a hard truth. It is a freeing one, because it means the life you want is not out of reach. It is not waiting on luck or timing or someone else's permission. It is waiting on your choices. Jim Rohn said, "Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change." Your choices, your attention, your time, your response to what happens to you, that is everything that actually matters. Fighting for yourself means your life becomes your primary project, not your job, not your social standing, your life, the quality of your days, the direction of your growth, the person you are slowly becoming. Most people treat their own life like a background thing, something that happens while they are busy doing everything else. While they are working for other people's goals, while they are solving other people's problems, while they are managing other people's feelings. Your life is not a background thing. It is the main thing. It is the only thing that is entirely yours, and it deserves to be treated that way. Start treating it that way. Not eventually, not when things slow down. Now, with the time and attention you give to it starting today. That project needs your best hours, not the leftover ones after everyone else has had what they need. This does not mean ignoring the people you love. It means arranging your life so that you come first in your own priorities, not always, but as the starting position. From that position, You can give genuinely. You can show up fully. You can carry responsibility without collapsing under it, because underneath everything you are doing for others is a person who has been taken care of. Your life is built in the hours nobody sees, in decisions made when no one is watching, in the discipline of returning to your own growth even when everything around you is pulling somewhere else. It is built slowly. Real things always are. Not in dramatic moments, but in the quiet accumulation of right choices made consistently. Fighting for yourself does not look dramatic. It looks like choosing your work before you check your phone in the morning. Finishing what you started before agreeing to something new. Protecting the time you set aside for yourself with the same seriousness you protect everything else. Small things, consistent things. That is how it gets built. Think about the person you want to be 1 year from now. Clearer, more grounded, living closer to who you actually are. That person did not arrive there in a single dramatic moment. They arrived there through hundreds of ordinary mornings just like this one. Mornings where they chose their work over distraction, where they held a boundary instead of caving, where they took one small step toward what mattered instead of spending the morning on what did not. This morning is one of those mornings. What you do with it, even in the next hour, is one of those steps. Take it. That is all. Just take the next step. You do not need to see the whole path. You just need to move in the right direction. There will be hard days. Days when other people's needs are louder than your own. Days when saying yes would be so much easier than holding the line. On those days, you do not need to be perfect. You do not need to hold every boundary flawlessly and make every right call. You just need to make one right call. Pick one thing and choose yourself in that one thing. That is enough for one day. Progress is not about being consistent in the best way possible every single day. It is about returning, about choosing right more often than you did before, about the direction being right even when the pace is slow. The direction you are choosing right now, turning toward yourself, taking yourself seriously, deciding your life is worth your full attention, that is the right direction. Stay in it, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days. On those days, come back to this, not because it gets easier every time, because the practice of returning, of choosing yourself again even after you slipped, is what builds the strength. The people who respect you will respect your priorities. The people who only valued your availability will have something to say about it. Let both responses tell you what they need to. The choices you make today shape who you are tomorrow, what you gave a Tuesday afternoon to. Whether you kept the commitment you made to yourself or broke it for something that did not deserve it. Those small daily choices compound into a month, into a year, into a version of yourself that is either closer to who you want to be or further from it. You are building something right now. With every choice you make today, make it count. Your life is worth your full attention. Give it that, not the distracted version of your attention, not the leftover version after everyone else has had what they need. The full version. The present, clear, intentional version that shows up when you have actually taken care of yourself. That version of your attention builds things. It sees clearly. It makes better decisions. It creates instead of just reacting. It moves forward instead of just managing. Give your life that attention every day, starting with the first hours of this morning. The morning is the most valuable time you have, before the world starts pulling at you. Before the requests start arriving, before the obligations remind you they exist. These early hours are yours. Use them for yourself, for your growth, for the work that matters to you, for the quiet that restores you. Protect them like they are the foundation of your day, because they are. Every strong day starts with a morning that was yours, a morning where the first hour did not belong to a screen or a notification or someone else's urgency. A morning where you arrived at the rest of your day already having done something for yourself. That is what this is. This morning, right now, you showed up for yourself. Keep that going. Let this be the kind of morning that becomes a habit a daily practice, the anchor your whole life is built around. This morning, before anything else pulls at you, spend 5 minutes thinking about where you are going, not where you have been, not what everyone else needs from you today, where you are going, what you are building, who you are becoming. That 5 minute is not wasted time, it is direction. And direction is the difference between a life that happens to you and a life you actually built. Carry that direction into your day. When something comes up that tries to pull you away from it, and something always comes up, you will have an anchor, a sense of what this day is for. And that anchor makes the decision of where to put your energy a lot simpler. Your life is not going to build itself, but it is going to be built by you. Starting today, one right choice at a time. What is one thing you have been putting off for yourself? Drop it in the comments. Now here's the important truth. 5 rules, 1 decision. Stop fighting for everyone. Fight for yourself. Not because other people do not matter, they do. Your family matters, your friendships matter, your responsibilities matter. What changes is the order. You have put yourself last for a long time. After work, after everyone who needed you. You have been at the bottom so long, it started to feel like that is just where you belong. It is not where you belong. It is where you ended up after years of choosing everyone else first. A person who takes care of themselves gives from a place of wholeness. Their yes means something because their no is real. Their presence means something because they chose to be there. That is who you are building, not by abandoning the people you love, by starting with yourself. Protect the source. Stop earning your place in rooms that would not miss you. Guard your time like it cannot be replaced, because it cannot. Walk through the guilt instead of around it. Build your life with the same dedication you have given to everyone else's. These 5 rules are not complicated. They do not require you to become a different person. They require you to start treating the person you already are with the seriousness they deserve. You have been serious about everyone else. Now be serious about yourself, not in a way that closes you off from the world. In a way that lets you show up in the world fully, with energy you actually have, with time you actually chose to give, with presence that is real because it was not forced out of you by obligation. That is the version of you that can actually make a difference. In your own life, in the lives of the people you love, in the world you move through every day. But that version requires that you fight for it. Every morning, every decision, every moment where the easier path is to give yourself away again. Fight for yourself, starting right now. You have been generous your whole life. That is not a flaw. It is one of the best things about you. But generosity that leaves you empty is not sustainable. And the people who love you do not need your exhausted version. They need the real you, the full one, the one that exists when you have actually been taken care of. When you start fighting for yourself, something shifts. You become more present, more honest, less exhausted. You stop performing fine and start actually being okay. People feel that. They feel the difference between the version of you that shows up because you chose to and the version that shows up because you could not find a way out. Your yes becomes more valuable when your no is possible. The relationships that survive you finally choosing yourself, those are the real ones. Built on genuine respect, not on your willingness to shrink. And what you build from here, the mornings you protect, the hours you reclaim, the boundaries you hold, even when it costs you something, that builds a life that actually feels like yours. One that you recognize when you look at it. One that fits who you are, not who everyone else needed you to be. You have spent a long time building things for other people. Today, you start building for yourself, not instead of them, alongside them, but with you included, with your needs on the list, with your peace protected, with your time treated like it matters. Because it does. You do. Go into this day differently. Carry these 5 rules with you, and the next time you feel the pull to give what you do not have, to shrink for a room that does not see you, to hand your hours to something that does not deserve them, to stay somewhere guilt is keeping you, stop. Remember what you heard this morning, and choose yourself instead, just once. That is all it takes to start. You woke up this morning, you chose to listen, you chose to give this time to something that matters. That already says something about who you are and where you are headed. Do not waste that momentum. Carry it into the day, into the first decision, into the first moment where you could either give yourself away or hold something back for yourself. Hold something back. Use it well. Come back tomorrow and do it again. That is the practice. Simple. Not always easy, but simple. And the simplest things, done consistently, change everything. One choice, one boundary, 1 hour given back to yourself. Do that again tomorrow and the day after, until fighting for yourself is not something you practice. It is just who you are. You have always been worth fighting for. You are just starting to believe it. And that belief, that simple, quiet, unshakable belief that you matter enough to protect, is what everything else is built on. Not confidence in the loud sense, not arrogance, just the settled knowledge that your needs are real, your time is valuable, your peace is worth protecting, your life is worth building with intention. That belief does not arrive all at once. It is built the same way everything else is, one choice at a time. One morning where you chose yourself, one boundary that held, 1 hour given to your own growth instead of someone else's convenience. Every morning you listen to something like this. You are building that belief. Every time you carry one of these ideas into your day and act on it, even imperfectly, even just once, you add to it. And it compounds. The person who listens and does nothing stays the same. The person who listens and acts on one thing, just one, is a different person by the end of the week, by the end of the month, by the end of the year. Be the second person. Take what resonated today and do something with it before this day ends. That is where you are headed. One choice at a time, starting with this morning. This morning you listened to 5 rules about fighting for yourself. Do not let that listening stay passive. Take one thing from today and do it differently, not all 5. 1. Say no to one thing that was going to drain you. Protect 1 hour for yourself. Ask yourself honestly whether a room you are in is worth what you are giving it. Sit with the guilt of one good decision instead of reversing it. Just one thing. Today. That is where it starts. And notice how it feels afterward. Not the guilt or the discomfort of a new choice, but the small, quiet satisfaction underneath all of that. The feeling of having acted in alignment with who you are trying to become. That feeling is real, it is worth chasing, and the only way to access it is to make the choice. Chase that feeling. Let it motivate the next one, and the one after that, and then tomorrow you come back, and you do one thing again, and the day after, and slowly, without announcement, without a dramatic transformation story, your life starts to feel more like yours. That is not a small thing, that is everything. If this reached something in you today, hit the like button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more and drop a comment telling me which rule hit you hardest. I will see you in the next one. Go make today count. You have everything you need. You always did. The only thing that was missing was the decision to use it for yourself. You just made that decision. Now go live it. That is not a small thing. That decision, made this morning, in this quiet moment before the day started, is the beginning of everything changing. Hold on to it. Carry it with you. And come back to it every time the world tries to pull you back into old patterns.